Hey everyone, this is Rachel. Thanks for clicking on my video. And I came in today to talk about the opening of the African American History Museum. Now, I have been reading a lot about the opening of this museum, and I wanted to come in and get you guys' take on whether this would be something that you would be interested in going to, or if it's something that you wouldn't because you don't really want to be reminded about the past. Now, I'm going to say up front, it would be something that I would be interested in seeing. And the reason why I even thought to do this video is because I was talking to some of the young people that are in my family. Um, Today and yesterday, we had a little lively discussion back and forth on Facebook with myself and a couple of the other members of my family who are in my age bracket. And what our discussion was about is I had saw a post of one of my um, young family members. They are between the ages of late 20s to early 30s. And this post talked about how they didn't feel that, a lot of the civil rights leaders that we had in the past did a whole lot for black people. They actually talked about how basically they were tired of hearing about it and how they just really talked and they really hadn't done anything. Now, when some of the family members who are like my age saw this, they started commenting on some of the things that this younger generation was saying. And I'm just going to say right up front that I was very disappointed in these younger family members of mine. And the reason why I was is because they have absolutely no respect for the past. They seem to be very arrogant. They seem to believe that anything that they have accomplished thus far in their lives, that they did it alone. They don't understand that anything that they have is because of what occurred before them. Meaning that back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, there were so many people that fought and gave their lives for what my little young cousins now are enjoying. Now, these little young cousins have gone to college. They're living in the suburbs. They have good jobs. And, they're feeling themselves. And even to one of them is seriously thinking about voting Republican. And when my brother saw this, he asked them, he said, well, if you vote Republican, then that means you're voting for Donald Trump, who gives less than two fucks about the African American community. He explained to this young cousin of mine, that Donald Trump is basically pandering to us right now. He just wants our votes. He doesn't really care about us. We talk to them about, how these people that fought in the civil rights movement, they were willing to give their lives. I mean, to die for things that they knew that they probably would not enjoy the fruits of their labor. Now, as I talked on Facebook to these young family members, I started to think about how when I was growing up, I sat so many days at my grandmother's table, listening to her tell stories of the past. I remember going with my grandfather and him talking about what it was like to be a young man in the 40s and 50s and 60s and all the things that he went through just trying to be respected as a man. I listened to these two grandparents tell me about what it was like growing up in the neighborhoods and communities that they grew up in and just trying to raise their children and stay out of the way of white people so things wouldn't happen to them, being beat and discriminated against. My grandfather was one of the first black paratroopers. He has so much pride, or had, because my grandfather died several years back. But when he told the story of, you know, being an intelligent black man and not wanting to, be in the military, cooking in a kitchen because he knew that basically he was smart and he had more to give. And then when he found out about the paratrooper program and how excited he was when he went and applied and was accepted, and he actually, was able to be a part of that program. And they were called the Triple Nickels. And if you look them up, they were something pretty special. I remember my grandmother telling me about just trying to buy a home and trying to find work. I remember her telling me stories about not having like gas in their home. She told me that she used to cook with coal and heat her home with coal, and how the coal man would come and drop off baskets of coal. I remember her telling me stories about working in the homes of white women as a domestic and how it made her feel, and just everything. I remember both of them telling me about, their lives as they were, raising their children and watching presidents being in, come into office, and what those presidents' policies meant to them as black people. I remember them telling me about when the civil rights movement really, really started to take fire, and black people were not taking it anymore, and they were burning down things and tearing up things, and why black people did it. I remember all of this stuff. And I remember them telling me about what they felt like as some of the things that black people fought for was starting to take root, like the right to vote, the right to do this, the right to do that, and how pleased they were when they could see some of the fruits of their labors. I even remember my father talking about going to the March on Washington. Now, I never even knew my dad had gone. One day we were just talking and he just brought it up out the blue. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You went to the March on Washington? And he, kind of laughed and he was like, yeah, Rochelle, but, let's back up. He said he was only about 19 or 20. He said he wasn't, into all of that. He was just a young man that had heard about a free bus trip to another state, basically to Washington. And he said he had heard that you didn't need any money, that they were going to feed you, and all you had to do is show up at this appointed time, get on the bus, and ride to Washington. He said that he was so immature that he didn't understand the depth of what he was going to see. He said that, in as time passed on, he realized that he had witnessed history that day, but at the time when he was 19, he didn't understand that that's what he was witnessing. Now, when I talk about these little young cousins of mine, when I say they have zero respect for the past, they have zero respect. They basically, again, said that, and I want to put it exactly how they were saying it, that we keep talking about all of this stuff that happened in the past, and that the things that are happening today are not the same, and you can't keep using those same old, I guess, methods that were used in the past for things that are happening today, and that they don't see, I guess, so much what those civil rights leaders did. They actually believe that, some of the things that they're enjoying now would have happened, I guess, eventually. In other words, they don't respect the fight. They don't respect that people literally died for them to go to the schools that they want to go to live in these suburbs that they now live in, to work at the jobs that they now work. They take this shit for granted. And I'm asking, as I'm sitting there, did we fail these fucking kids? Was it the schools? Was it us? What happened? I even asked them, did they know the lyrics to our anthem? Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, blah, blah, blah. They don't. They have no idea of that song. I remember learning that song in school. I remember going to school and talking about civil rights. I remember distinctly having a teacher in the 8th grade by the name of Mr. Charney. I remember he found out that Coretta Scott King was going to come and give a speech at a downtown college in Cleveland. And I remember Mr. Charney, who was a Jewish man, telling us how important it was for him to get us down there to see her speak. I remember Mr. Charney telling us that the contributions that Coretta Scott King's husband made, Martin Luther King, was so important to us as African Americans. Mr. Charney was a teacher that I will never forget, because I don't know if it was because he was Jewish and, his Jewish ancestors had suffered, atrocities under Hitler, that he kind of, his parents were actually in a concentration camp. And he was so into civil rights and fighting, and, you know, he just was. He took us there. He was so proud to escort us to that. I remember that to this day. And I remember when we got there, Mr. Charney, after we had all sat down and Coretta Scott King had started talking, Mr. Charney was looking at us and making sure that we were paying attention. And he was smiling at us. He was so happy to see that woman speak. My my fear is that we in the schools have failed these kids. We failed them. You know, I remember when we were debating whether we were going to watch the Roots movie. And we were going back and forth, back and forth. Some people were saying yes, some people were saying no, and they were giving their reasons. And I bring that up to say this. The one thing about the Roots movie, if Alex Haley's family had not passed down those family stories generation after generation after generation, Alex Haley would have no knowledge of the past. Whether people say that he embellished the story or not for TV, the story was still there. And it was because his family told him that. The same as I've told my children and my grandparents told me, and on and on and on. Now, I said all of this under this video about the African American History Museum, because if our kids, if this younger generation has forgotten how far we've come, if they don't appreciate, the people that came before them and all the struggles that those people made so they can have all that they enjoy today, what is our future? These kids are our future. You know, one day they're going to be our age. And if they're starting off like this, where they have no appreciation for the past, then what does that say for us? What does it mean for us? I'm going to go back to my little cousins. Now, as they were, making their little posts today on Facebook, I was so angry at some of the things that they were saying, the disrespect that they had, that I wanted to literally get in my car, gather up several leather belts, thick leather belts, drive my little cell phone back to Cleveland and fuck them up. They made me so angry with their disrespect. And they were a little chuckly about, well, yeah, y'all keep on talking about, Martin Luther King and, Jesse Jackson and, Medgar Evers. Look, that was in the past. I mean, we talking about today, you know. And I told them at one point, I said, if things are bad, so bad, and, you don't respect these people that came before you, then won't you be a voice? Won't you rise up in the community and start doing things yourself? Won't you become a Martin Luther King, a Medgar Evers, a Jesse Jackson, even to an Al Sharpton? Because whatever you think of those people, they did at least try. They tried. Martin Luther King was fucking assassinated. Medgar Evers assassinated. Malcolm X assassinated. These kids don't care. They don't care. Rosa Parks, they don't care. Now, I'm not going to say all of them because that would be so wrong. I do not want to brush, a paintbrush across everyone that's in their late 20s, early 30s, because let me just tell you this. There are some amazing young people out there, amazing, that are trying their best and do appreciate what was given to them. Because this life that they're living now, people back in the 40s and 50s could only dream of what they're living. I tried to tell these assholes that 50 to 60 years ago, Black people were not living like this. We couldn't even live in the neighborhoods that we wanted to live in. Crosses burned in our yards, beaten for no reason. Trying to integrate a school and being spat upon and bricks and, things thrown at you. Trying to go into a store to shop or sit at a lunch counter and have people pour things over your head. I'm so angry at these fucking kids. I'm so angry at them. So when I think about this African American History Museum, hell, the thing may not even do good business, because if my little cousins are a representation of who would go there, they don't even respect the past. And I'm going to say this for their parents, my family members. I'm so fucking disappointed in them, because they were supposed to sit down and educate these kids. And I hate to say this, but I don't think they did a good job. I really don't. Because if I could sit at my grandmother's table and listen to her, if I can listen to the stories that my grandfather told me about being a young Black man, in the military and just his life, and take something from that, a pride in my people, of how hard they fought, so I can sit right now in the house that I'm sitting in, that I can leave out my house and go to a job that 50 or 60 years ago they would not have let me do. You know, I don't want to go clean anybody else's house, home. I don't want to clean up after white people and their kids. And I don't have to do that. Because once upon a time, someone fought for me to have the job that I have now, to live where I live now. If I was to take a picture outside my window, the person that lives to the left of me is white. The person that lives to the right of me is white. And I don't say that to say anything, but y'all know 50 or 60 years ago, I would not be able to live here in peace. They would have been burning crosses or killed me. Now I get out my car, they know I've had spine surgery, and they see me coming in with groceries, they actually help me. Sometimes I'm like taken aback because I grew up in Cleveland, home of Tamir Rice, where those police would fucking black people up. And where there were certain parts of Cleveland black people could not go in. And that is to this day. So my little cousins, I don't know, y'all. Now, I am going to make a promise to myself that I am going to visit this museum once, at least once, because I want to see what they have. They said that some of the artifacts are breathtaking, moving, and I know I'm going to cry. I know I am. I'm a very tender-hearted person. You know, I'm very tender-hearted, you know, and that's why after talking to these assholes that I call cousins, little cousins, I'm pissed today, y'all. I'm just pissed. And myself, I told my kids, you know, all of the history that was told to me. And the only thing that I can hope is that they were listening, you know, and that when they have children, they will pass on these stories, you know, the stories that were told to me. That's how we tell our history, is black people, you know. People don't want to hear about slavery. They don't want to hear about the civil rights movement. They don't want to hear the bad stuff. They only want to hear the good stuff. And you know, look at what that has done. Because now our kids don't know our fucking past. And then when you bring it up to them, either they don't want to hear it, or they're talking negatively about people who gave their lives for them. Gave their lives. Y'all, and with that, I got to get out of here. I cannot believe I'm about to almost cry. See, y'all, I'm too tenderhearted. I'm just too sentimental, and just my nerves is bad, y'all. I can't. And with that, thank you so much for watching my video and listening to me rant on about these goddamn little cousins of mine. And y'all have a good evening. Bye-bye now.